Welcome, you sick bastards. Tonight I have got a fucking fantastic guest. Really, really excited about having this gentleman on. I thought about it a long time ago and I was like, nah, he'll never say yes. Even though I know that he's a much cooler guy than that because he's so incredibly freaking kind to me. All the advice he's given helping me with getting my film out there. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this guy has some pretty good credentials here. I'm a huge fan. Um, from horrorfix.com, Night Terrors Radio, currently working on Effed Tales from the End Times, about to release a board game called Slice and Dice, which sounds fucking rad. And my personal favorite that I'm going to fanboy on here in just a little bit, Holes in the Sky, Mr. Ash Hamilton. Thank you so much for coming on my shitty little podcast. It is a pleasure to have you, sir. It really is. And I look forward to getting to know you a little bit tonight. And again, just thank you. And let's hear it from you. Tell us about yourself, sir.
Oh, hey, thanks for having me on. As my wife will attest, I will talk about myself to great lengths. Um, so- much to her chagrin sometimes, but yeah. So you gave me a great intro, so it's going to be sort of hard to compare to that. But I am, I guess you want to call it a filmmaker. I do make movies, and I'm a long time horror enthusiast. I've been running horrorfix.com now for, geez, about 12 years. I basically love everything in the genre. I've always been a big fan of horror and sci-fi and fantasy and stuff like that, since I was a little kid. And, as I get older, strangely, it's like I still have most of the same interests. I'd like to think that I've grown just in a little bit, but I've just went back with adult money to buy action figures that I sold at garage sales, when I was like 10 or 11, when I got out of like the toy phase and then I got back into the toy phase. So yeah, I love everything like that. I love like old circa 70s and 80s toys and collectibles, and I've got a bunch of those that surround me about any time. My mother was a big enthusiast of horror films, and I come from a generation that bridges technology, because I didn't have the internet when I was a kid. Obviously I'm older than that, and I'm actually like pre-cable. I'm that old. So I remember having like three stations because we were in a pretty rural town in the Midwest. So that's, strangely, those are really fond memories for me. Even though I love the accessibility that we have now, I love being able to say, what was that film, and then being able to look it up and then being able to download it or stream it or whatever. Like that is really cool to me. I love the fact that you and I can talk, because growing up without that kind of availability or access to the world, if you're like a weird kid, and I was a fucking weird kid, man. I'm sorry, can I swear?
Absolutely, tear it up.
Okay, I was the weirdest fucking kid. I was a weirdo. Um, that was really hard to connect with people. Like um, I was still like a little boy in the sense that, like, I put like t-ball and stuff. I was outside and I was getting dirty and having like BB gun wars with, sorry mom, I didn't know we were supposed to do any of that, but doing that kind of shit. And but my heart was always in movies. So it was really difficult, like, as like an 11 or 12-year-old kid, to like grab another kid your age and be like, hey, it's like I've got a VHS of Lucio Fulci's Gates of Hell. You want to come over and watch it? These kids are looking at me like, who is this fucking weirdo? Like, who is this kid? It was difficult, especially in a town of like 600 people. It's like make those connections. The nearest town was about 40 minutes away, and I would beg my parents to take me there because they had a bookstore, and the bookstore had like stacks of old magazines. So I was able to go through like just these stacks of like Famous Monsters of Filmland, old creepies, Eries, Fangos if they had them and stuff like that, you know. So it was always this quest, you know, it was always an adventure. Like, how do I learn more about, you know, movies? Because you're in a rural town in the middle of nowhere. Our town was the nearest town, which was about the same size, was about 9 miles of cornfields away. You know, and you get to that town and there's really nothing there either. It's just a mirror image of the town you just came from. You know, it's like it's like a Russian doll. It's just like, you know, little town inside little town inside little town, and
Hmm.
then eventually you get to bigger towns. But you know, coming from the Midwest, it still is not really like a cultural mecca. You know, like I hate to disappoint everyone, but like Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, like I'm sorry, not real cultural meccas. You know, they've got some cool stuff going on occasionally, but you know, as a kid, you're always looking at like Hollywood. You know, you're looking at L.A. and stuff like that, or looking at New York. So when you see those cities and what they have to offer, and then you try to find something similar in your town, it's a little despairing. You know, it's it's difficult. You know, as a kid. So, you know, my mother was a big fan, and we would stay up, you know, late at night, and you know, for 3 channels, they'd have midnight movies. You know, before the TV would go totally poltergeist and
Yep.
give you static and give you the national anthem. Yeah, like CBS would have midnight movies and stuff, and they were usually movies that they could get cheap. And at the time, you know, there wasn't, I think, a big calling for like, you know, Hammer films because I'm sure that they were just part of a back catalog of whatever network, you know, films that you know they had purchased at a time. So you could see stuff like, you know, Satanic Rites of Dracula, Dracula Prince of Darkness, you know, Horror of Dracula, you know, Twins of Evil, stuff like that. Like you could watch that shit at midnight, you know, on a network, which was kind of crazy, you know, even though it was a, you know, like a local network affiliate. So my mom and I would stay up, and some of my best and most traumatizing memories are staying up to watch films I probably shouldn't have. You know, yeah, stuff like Trilogy of Terror with Karen Black in it, being forever traumatized by that fucking Zuni fetish doll. I think I got over that till I was like 15. But you know, looking back, it was something because like, and this is something that I like to talk to people about because you know I think that pretty soon it's, you know, after like you and I are long gone, it's going to be, you know, again, it's just going to be a story. You know, all these things really become legend after a while, you know, and that there's a ritual to stuff like that. There's this ritual aspect to staying up late at night, you know, with one of your parents that sort of, you know, sort of understood you better than the other one, or, you know, one that just sort of entertained your weird little interests. And, you know, we're not going to have that, you know, anymore. Yeah, and unless somebody sets off some weird kind of, you know, like, you know, electromagnetic device, and then we all go back to, you know,
Right.
little house on the prairie type. But yeah, that's like weird stuff that we're gonna lose. That kind of saddens me a little bit because I had some real connections, you know, in finding that. Like I said, this idea of like a quest. I know I'm like just rambling on, but like the idea of quests, I think are something that horror and sci-fi fans maybe know a little bit better than maybe, you know, other people,
Hmm.
because you know it was always searching for, you know, this elusive thing that, you know, was the next best movie that you were going to become a fan of, or that director, you know, that you didn't know had 4 previous movies and you became a fan and you're trying to find them. And you know that stuff, like that's still, you know, that's kind of like, there's, I think there's a movie out there that, you know, that we should all make, or we should come together and make, that is, you know, the backdrop is like a horror collector in the 80s, you know, frantically searching for some movie that, you know, reportedly exists or something.
Right. Hell
I
yeah,
know they've done something similar, but
I'm in for that. That's kind of some Antrim vibes, you know, where it's like this movie's so haunted you're gonna die if you watch it. You know, have you seen that one?
yeah, and you know, and I kind of like love stuff like that. I kind of love just stories like that. You know, we've had several. I believe it was what Masters of Horror had, Cigarette Burns, that sort of alluded to, you
Yeah.
know, a movie that drove people insane, and that theme has been around for a really long time. Like Robert Chambers, you know, The King in Yellow, like pre Lovecraft.
Yeah.
like Chambers of the King in Yellow is a play that drove people mad. So I think there's this idea of forbidden art that sort of still has, you know, a bloodline that sort of courses through horror and sci-fi, that there's something out there that's mysterious and just sort of as deadly as the subject matter. It
Yeah.
always interests me anyways.
Oh yeah, me too. And dude, I'm really glad that you weren't rambling, by the way. That was you
Thanks.
were no, you were totally hitting my nostalgia button because everything that you talked about, staying up late, I didn't stay up late with my mom because my mom wasn't really into horror movies so much. Like she'd watch them. My mom was pretty cool. Like she would
Yeah.
watch them, but it wasn't really her thing. Plus, she was always kind of working late and stuff, so I was always home with my uncles. So I had the stereotypical, raised by the uncles, kind of get the shit beat out of me on a nightly basis type thing. Not like all in good fun, like they weren't really beating the shit out of me, but it was
Oh,
like
right. Yeah.
let's let's hide outside and bang on the windows and scare the shit out of 4-year-old Dustin. That's
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's the kind of things that I had. But it was the same thing. My uncles, as much as they tormented me, I can give them credit where credit is due. They are the ones that introduced me to horror. We're you and I are about the same age. I think I'm in my 40s. So I
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
an 80s kid. Um,
Yeah.
so I also remember pre-cable days, turning the two knobs on the TV to brrr, the
Oh, yeah.
UHF and VHF, so I remember that as well. And my uncles, that's where I was going with that, is my uncles, they introduced me to A Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. My favorite as a kid I remember watching was House 2, The Second Story. That
Oh,
was what's that?
oh, yeah. I love the fact that Bill Maher is in that movie.
I know,
Like,
yeah,
that
young
that
Bill
just
Maher.
cracks me up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, but that movie, I like almost every time I would get together with my uncles and they would babysit me or whatever. Let's watch the. I don't think I called it House because I didn't know any better at the time. I called it. I don't remember what I called it, but I know it had something to do with the creepy old skeleton. The gunslinger character in the
Oh,
movie.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I loved that guy. I love that character. So that's what got me into horror at a very young age. And like I said, everything you mentioned, I remember doing. Staying up late on the weekends when you weren't supposed to. Whether it be hanging out with your buddies at a sleepover in their parents' basement or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
Those were the best. And the drive-in, like it's it's a shame that not a lot of people are going to get to know what a drive-in is. Like there's still some around. I don't know about in the Midwest where you're at. I know down here in Texas there's still a few drive-ins, but
Yeah.
they're yeah, and maybe it's just me being biased because those were some of the best times when I was a kid. So maybe as an adult now, I'm like, it's not the same, because it doesn't have that same feel,
Oh, right.
but they're still
Yeah.
there. But it is a shame that a lot of kids are going to grow up nowadays, like you said, after we're long gone. A lot of kids are going to grow up and they might not know what that is. I mean, who knows where their enjoyment and nostalgia will come from? It might come from playing video games, where ours came from watching a horror movie. Who knows? But
Right.
I,
Yeah.
I just I think we're lucky to be alive at a time where that existed, and I think that it can still be carried on. I really do. And like you said about some filmmakers making a movie about that, like that, I think that's a fantastic idea, and I support it 100%. And because I'm all about bringing back nostalgia. And I'm not going to sit here and plug my movie all night long because that's not what we're here for. But in my movie, there is I have a horror host in my movie.
Mm.
Like the old like Tales from the Crypt and the
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Joe Bob Briggs and Svengoolie and all those. I I brought that into my first film because I wanted that. Whether people love it or hate it, I don't care. That was for me. It was because that's what I
Yeah.
remember. That to me, Friday night didn't start until I heard the Crypt Keeper laugh and tell some awful dad joke. You know,
Oh yeah.
that was my Friday night in middle school and high school. You know, as soon as you hear that cackle and he's telling these dad jokes, like someone's
Oh,
about
and
to
then
have a
like
bad day.
the intro, that goes like through the stairs and the house and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
Like, yeah, that stuff again is, something that we can't quite get back. We're in an age of binging. We're in this, age of we're in an age of and it's strange, but like we're not necessarily bound by time anymore, which is sort of a weird concept when you start thinking about it. Like, most of us really have sort of bizarre schedules when it comes to like entertainment, things of that nature. Even like, people who work from home, for example, even that schedule's a little bit different now. We're in the age of flex time and we're in the age of streaming and everything. So, being younger, we were sort of dictated by time. I knew when my favorite shows would come on,
yep,
and that was always a benchmark to like the end of the week or the start of the weekend, depending on what their slot was. So you were always sort of gauging time, based on these interests. And I don't think we really, have that so much anymore. We do have some streaming services that release stuff on a weekly basis, which I actually really like. Like I think I like that more than getting a whole season because, I like being able to look over at my wife and be like, "Oh shoot, Monday this drops." And it still has that feeling of what it was like when you had, a prime time Friday show or something that you really liked.
yep.
And I don't even know if prime time really sort of is a thing anymore. I know that the three major networks, still sort of have it, but I don't think it means anything like what it used to mean, you know.
Yeah, no, you're
But
right. I don't think it does. I don't think it has the same meaning as it did when we were growing up. And there was, what was it? Family Matters and Full House and what TGIF.
oh
Like
yeah,
that was Friday night. It's like Friday night, 8 o'clock. You knew exactly what was coming on, and you had your night planned based on that. If that was your thing, that
yeah, oh yeah.
that and yeah, nowadays you're right. We really don't have that. I haven't made up my mind what I like more, if I like the binge or if I like to wait week by week. It kind of depends, because I do have some favorite shows out there. It's like I agree with you where I like that feeling of, okay, yeah, the new episode drops next Tuesday, but then the kid inside me is like, come on, I just want to watch all of it. It's so good.
Oh, it can be painful. It can be almost physically painful to have to wait for the show. I know I've got a couple right now that I really like, and knowing like that we're coming to the end of like the season on them, it's like, it's this horrible dread that who knows if it'll be renewed. If so, I mean, the way the writer strike has everything right now, we
Right,
might not see our favorite show for another 2 years.
right.
It could be a lot, and that's kind of weird because that was never really a thing in the heydays of network television. You either got your new season, it was the fall lineup. Remember, I mean, I used
Yep,
to scour the TV Guide fall lineup to see what kind of genre shows were going to be on
yep.
each year.
TV
And
guide.
that was like, how exciting was that you would have this fall lineup TV guide, and like as a person that liked horror and sci-fi and stuff, like you would just scour it, to see what the new shows were going to be.
Yeah,
That was an interesting feeling, man. And again, like I don't think we really we obviously don't have that because the way that shows are tiered in their release dates now. We
right,
don't have that huge influx, which I think is kind of good because, I mean, really the fall lineup was just sort of like a 10 little Indians kind of thing. They threw
right,
everything out there to see what was going to make it, at probably midway through the season because there was always those mid-season cancellations. And I'm kind of glad now that the competition is still there, but it's tiered a little bit. So smaller shows can sort of squeak by where I
right.
don't think they had any chance. And I mean, look at the amount of genre shows we have now compared to what it was like when we just had the three major networks.
Yeah,
We were hungry for stuff, man, hungry. And then when something hit, like something really hit, like the X-Files. It was like,
Yeah.
people went insane over it
Mm-hmm.
because there was so very little to attach yourself to. Not that the X-Files wasn't a great show. I fucking love the X-Files, and I will still rewatch the X-Files. I love that show. But it's obviously people either really attached themselves to something or they didn't. And there wasn't a whole lot of gray area there. It wasn't a sliding scale. It was either we have this and now it's successful, or it's sort of, we don't really like it all that much. And then it's probably not going to be back for a second season.
Yeah.
So it was much more, I think, black and white back then. But now we've got those shows that thankfully squeak by enough that they can get a following, and then we get, sometimes 3 or 4 seasons or more out of them. And that's cool to me. And we definitely are, in my opinion, in the golden age of television. I think we've got more shows,
Mm-hmm.
genre shows, and well-written shows, and well-acted shows, and shows with higher production value than we've probably ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and the way the model's going, I have a feeling it's probably going to be more than we'll ever see, because unfortunately, I think the amount of shows that we have is on the decline.
Yeah, I think you're right. And for the kids out there, a TV guide was a book that we used to have to read to find out what was going to be on TV.
And it was newsprint.
It was,
So at the end of reading that fall guide, your fingers were black
yeah,
from the newsprint of the TV guide.
yeah,
So it was a sacrifice you made
yeah, right,
to find out if there are any horror or sci-fi shows on.
right. And it was funny too because like it came. What did it come out by? Like was it like by the month? You could go buy like a monthly thing at the grocery store in line, and
Oh yeah,
I,
I think they had one that was like a magazine format, and then they had like the weekly format, which was the small ones.
right.
But it was crazy because that was also in the age too where you had all those like soap opera digests, where
Yep,
all of those were in the impulse section at the checkout lanes.
yep.
And what do we have now? I think two soap operas, maybe. That's it.
Maybe.
Out of all the networks, I think we've got two. And there was one point where it was something like, I think, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Every major network was nothing but hour-long soap operas. That's something that a generation, ahead of us is going to be like, what?
Yep.
What in the world is a soap opera?
Yeah.
And that's kind of crazy.
It is. I just remember reading the TV guide as a kid going, how do they know? Like it's
Oh, right.
it's
Yeah.
like Saturday. They know what's going to be on TV on Saturday. How do they know that? Because like you said, there was no internet back then. I mean, maybe there was a little bit, but it wasn't, you
No.
couldn't just Google something, it was
TV Guide was like the industry insider.
right. Yeah. It was like
It was,
every grandma had one on the coffee table. It,
oh, yeah.
yeah.
I think I've still got, because I'm a huge fucking nerd, I think I've still got like every TV guide that had Lord of the Rings covers on it.
Oh,
'Cause
wow.
somewhere, like in a bin, or some kind of plastic tote or something. I'm sure I've got something like that.
Wow, that would be cool to see. I don't have anything cool like that, unfortunately. You said nerd. I'm like, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Oh man, at one point in time, like I went through like phases, like before my divorce. I'm remarried now, but my first marriage it ended badly, and a lot of my collectibles and stuff, unfortunately, sort of went the way of the dodo. And a lot of
Ooh,
stuff that I had that I'll probably never be able to get back. A lot of them I'm still trying, and I pick up stuff. Pick up probably way too much stuff than I should. But I'm always like scouring online marketplaces because occasionally somebody will find something like in a barn somewhere, which
yep,
is kind of cool about being in the Midwest. I've got a 19, God, is 78 or 79 Shogun Warrior Godzilla, and it was a barn find in a town about 20 miles away from here. Somebody found it in a barn and posted it,
wow.
and I'm like, I cannot believe that was, just in a barn somewhere. There's a few like Masters Universe figures and stuff in there. So yeah, so I finally got Shogun Warrior Guns I've been wanting like, ever since I was a kid, and some other stuff that occasionally like I'll stumble upon. Like you can't see it here, but I've got a 1979 Kenner Alien, one of the 18-inch aliens, and
Mm-hmm.
the back of the head you can push, and the second set of
Yeah.
jaws will come out. Yeah, I love that thing. But that's another thing too that like took me years and years to pull the trigger on because those were like fairly expensive. And
Yeah.
I'm like I come from like a not a horribly poor background, but I come from a background where those sort of purchases were always frivolous.
Mm-hmm.
And so as unfortunately you get into an adult, like some of those habits are still there where
Yep.
you're like, I can't spend this much money on this. I can't do this. You have to sort of rewire yourself in order to make yourself happy, or
Yep.
else you just become this person that sits back and won't let yourself have anything. So that was one of the few bucket list items that was like, oh come on.
Yeah.
Like you're an old man now, Ash. You can buy yourself toys.
You can buy that toy if you want to. Nobody can stop you.
Right. You do it, Ash. You do it. Give myself a fucking pep talk at 3 o'clock in the morning on eBay.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I didn't have the luxury of growing up around barns or anything. I'm in Texas now, not native. I'm originally from the West Coast in Washington State. I grew up in Tacoma, Washington. It's about 40 minutes south of Seattle.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's where I grew up. So, not a lot of barn finds around there. You might find some, guitar picks from Kurt Cobain thrown around and it
Yeah,
there
yeah, you never know, yeah.
there's some pretty cool stuff up there. I mean, it's a great place. It's too expensive to live nowadays, but it's a great place. And I got to say, growing up, I did have the pleasure of getting to see a lot of cool things from that area. A lot of the great bands that I still love:
Oh,
Nirvana,
yeah.
Soundgarden, Alice in Chains. I'm a rock and metal guy, so that was really cool to grow up in that area. Speaking of like movies and things, I remember going to see Blair Witch when it first came out in like what was it, 98,
Yeah.
and it was only in select theaters. We had to drive up to Seattle to some creepy, and I mean they couldn't have picked a better location to play this thing too, because it was like a gothic theater. I mean it had like gargoyles out front, like it was.
Oh, wow, that's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah, it was a creepy ass place. We drove all the way up there to see the thing, got inside, watched it, and then walked out and we're like, that fucking sucked. Because we didn't appreciate it at the time.
Right, yeah.
Now, of course, it's that movie's it's like the goat. It's it's
Oh,
it's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's not the original found footage, obviously, but it's one of the more mainstream, more popular ones that kind of set the ball in motion for folks like yourself and me and Dylan Brown and all these wonderful freaking awesome filmmakers out there now. Like that movie kind of set the ball in motion.
I think it came at, like, just the right time. I mean, we were just sort of getting into the age of the internet, and people were, um, adopting the internet, and what it represented was that weird sort of gateway where, it there wasn't enough people online to truly like, to destroy the mystery around it.
Hmm.
The gig wasn't up. Like people realized, that it was, probably fake because usually it's stuff like that's too good to be true. You know what I mean? It would have
Right.
been a smoking gun for the paranormal if that was the case. But, there was just enough like legitimacy of, people getting scared, people talking about it, rumors being spread that I think it also sort of blew the doors wide open for a lot of amateur filmmakers because it was one of those first films that people really started talking about the success of extremely low budget,
Yep.
the success of homegrown cinema, the success of being able to do something with a very limited cast and crew and very limited resources. Although years later we find out that they had more money than we actually thought they did, and
Right.
there was a whole lot going on there that was, on the promotional back end that we weren't
Hmm.
really privy to, but it did at least start setting that precedent where people started talking about the accessibility of indie film for filmmakers. Because, prior to that, even if it was a small film, it was still a film shot on film.
Yep.
It was still a film that had to go through all the rigmarole of finding studios that were willing to represent it, and you know uh, sort of classical distribution, and then theatrical runs. And being in the 90s, it was able to take advantage of not only theatrical, but the blockbuster model and all of that. Like, it was really, for that film, it was like the perfect storm. It's unfortunate, but we really don't have that kind of jumping off point anymore. Like, we don't really have a lot of I guess, like, like unfertilized territory, virgin territory. A lot of what we have is literally just hoping it reaches the right person, hoping it reaches the right people, hoping then that, word of mouth and, the number of streams, you know, is, is something that will elevate the film. And, then you can make another one, another one, another one. Um, but yeah, it was a different time, man. Like, again, we're talking nostalgically, but it's like there is room for nostalgia in a lot of that. I mean, I'm not necessarily a cynic. Like, I'm not jaded by any means, but you know, like a filmmaker in our time is really strange, because we have all of these tools available to us, that weren't available to us, let's face it, 45 years ago.
Right.
45 years ago, if you wanted to make a film, you better have at least $100,000, and that was just to get it rolling.
Yep.
Um, now we've got some fantastic stuff that's shot on iPhones. We've got fantastic stuff that's edited on iPhones. We've got, a lot of really, really creative people out there, which of course sort of like hyper saturates the market. So you've got people that are releasing films all the time. And I do feel like it's maybe not so competitive, especially, sort of like, in the horror market, because I think a lot of people are very nice and accommodating, and I feel like there's really a brotherhood here.
Mhm.
And I think that's a great thing. Um, but yeah, it's definitely a different time, and I think that, sadly, the kinks are still sort of being worked out as far as how our films reach the public.
Yeah.
And like, I'll be the first person to say that, like, I don't think the model works, and I don't think that filmmakers are really making the money they deserve. And I think unfortunately the model still works like the blockbuster model worked, which was, you have a movie that finds distribution, and then Blockbuster buys 10 tapes at 99.99 so that they can rent them. Um, and then all of a sudden you've got $1,000 in one out of five blockbusters in a town of 50,000 people. And there are a lot of 50 to 100 to 200,000 to, all these towns across the United States. You had a lot of people that had direct to video movies that were shot for next to nothing.
Yep.
And these people are still making money off of those movies, because of that model. I think that was a great time to be a filmmaker. If unfortunately, if you had a little bit of money and you had some means, you could probably make a film that would tide you over until your next film. Um, and that's not necessarily the case now. Unfortunately, um, I don't think we know how to do it yet. I think that a lot of people are still very enthusiastic about making films. I'm very enthusiastic about it. You're very enthusiastic about it. A lot of our colleagues, our peers are. Um, but when it really comes to getting our film out there, and let's face it, like, getting paid, it's just not that easy. Um, we're making people money, that's for sure. Like, somebody's getting paid.
Right.
The entertainment market is wide enough that there's enough room for these films, because everyone wants content, everybody's scrambling for content. But let's face it, like, the content creators aren't really unfortunately getting paid the way that they should, and that's kind of sad.
It
So I think there's an evolution yet that's going to put us where we need to be, but I think that we're definitely there's a struggle right now to find a foothold on it.
right, yeah, and you're not the first person to bring up that concern either. I have talked to other filmmakers that have said the same thing about somebody's getting paid, but it's not. It's not us, and I don't know how I feel about that yet because I'm still new to the game. I've only got my one film in distribution right now, and it hasn't even gone fully live yet. But I can see where, like, okay, so like let's just say your film, for instance, Holes in the Sky, the Sean Miller story. Speaking of Blair Witch and having being the goat, I if I got my information correct at last read, you now have the record for most awards for a found footage film at, is it 19 now or is it more?
Well, Blair Witch came in at 19, 19 or 18, I believe, and we were really not like I get really weird when like I try to give like pep talks. I'm like the worst. I could never be like a football coach or anything because I'm always like the low hanging fruit estimate kind of guy.
Right.
So instead of like go out there and kill them, go out there and rip their heads off, I'm more like, hey, give it your best. If you get hurt, don't play. Come on back. We'll talk about things. you know, I'm I think I take more of like a therapist approach. And when we first put the movie out, I told people, I said, yeah, we're gonna try to put it at a few festivals. And and I talked to the cast and what little crew we had, and I said, but if it doesn't get in, that's okay. I'm like, sometimes these places cap 3,000 movies.
Hmm.
Like if we don't get in, it's because there's a lot of good movies out there, But the fact that we tried is pretty cool. And then we started to get into these festivals. Then I was like, okay. So then I ramped up my low expectations pep talk, which was like, don't expect to win anything. We just got in, and that's enough. So I was always really weird about stuff like that, and I sort of always have been. I don't exactly know why, but I'm always sort of I always have expectations of a rug being pulled out from under me. I know
Hmm.
that sounds weird, but it's always like every time we won an award, I expected a follow-up phone call to say that it was a mistake. I was always expecting like that email, like, we're very sorry to inform you.
Yeah. Yeah.
A film by a very similar name was actually the film that won. And then I'd have to go back and renege on every single thing that I did and be like, I'm so sorry, guys. We actually didn't win you. Like like that was the stuff that honestly went through my head. And it's really like it's not for like lack of confidence because I'm a fairly confident guy. Um, but I think it's just maybe it's a generational thing, of
Hmm.
Charlie Brown getting the football pulled out, from under him when he's trying to kick it and stuff like that. They're always sort of expecting that next thing to happen. But we were in the car and my wife was looking and she's like, hey, I think that like Blair Witch is like 19 is what they won. And I was like, oh, I'm like, that's pretty cool. And she's like, where are we at? And like, I didn't want to have the conversation. I'm like, oh no, I don't even like this is, you jinx yourself. I'm not doing this.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, like like phobic. Like, oh no, we can't talk about this. And we were pretty close. Like we were pretty close. Um, and I'm like, okay, well, let's not make this a thing. Like I can't make it a thing. Like I can't think about it. And then we got a few more, and we sort of tipped over the edge there. And now I think at total we're at like 28. So I think we went
Wow.
a few more than like what we were sort of maybe hoping for because of the Blair Witch thing. So yeah, we ended up hitting like a lot, and then occasionally some will like still come through that we just totally either forgot about, or we'll have people ask us if is it okay to show the film, and is it okay to enter it in the festival because we're going to show it. And
Hmm.
you know the one that I really want to go to that's coming up over the 4th of July is that they're showing it in Roswell, and I
Yeah.
really, really want to go. And I've been to Roswell, and I love Roswell. I love the Roswell area actually. So I'm kind of miffed that this is the one that I can't go to because it's like it's just not something we can do right now. You know, the distance
Oh,
and it being around the 4th, and you know, like having a kid is always something where you gotta sort of look at what you can and can't do. But
right.
that is one that I would have loved to have been at the screening for. It's the Roswell one. So
Yeah, I mean, especially considering the premise of the movie. It's about alien abduction and the festivals in Roswell. Like that,
yeah,
man.
it's perfect.
Yeah, it
For me,
it
it's
is. But oh yeah, okay. Well, I won't dig into that sore spot because man, um, but okay, so you were at like 28 awards. Holy shit. I had no idea it was that many. I knew that you now have, more awards for that movie than any other found footage, which congratulations, by the way.
thank you, thank you.
Well deserved. Every time I've commented on something on Facebook or even just personally messaged you, like I've meant every word, and I just want you to know that from just not just as a fan or even a hopeful colleague one day. It literally, like, that movie. The first time I watched it before it was out on Tubi and all that. I rented it on was it Vudu or Amazon? I don't remember, but I rented it on one of them. It
Well,
was
and thank you for renting it too, because that helps.
yeah, that's what I've heard. Yeah, I think it was Voodoo. I rented it on. It was like $5 or something, and I'm like, at the time, because I had never heard of the movie. I'd never heard of you. I'm a found footage fan. I always have been, but it was just one of those things where it's like people are just starting to talk about it in Facebook groups, and I'm hearing how good it is, and I made a little, a little. It was some B-roll in my movie, but it was honest truth about my favorite kinds of found footage are cryptid and alien found footage. So then I read, of course, I Googled it and I read about what your film was about. And I'm like, oh shit, it's alien abduction. Like, I'm in. I don't care if this thing's $30. Like, I'm in because I've been into aliens since I can remember. And the, the way you did it, and I won't go into your budget or anything, but talking about, people being able to do things on a limited budget. I mean, my God, dude, like what you did with that movie was such a limited budget, and I don't. It's hard for me to even describe how it made me feel the first time I watched it because it was kind of all the emotions. I was creeped out. I was nervous. I was happy. I was sad because of, and I won't spoil it, but because of some things that happened in the movie and your
Right.
performance, I was like,
Thank you.
that's so sad, like it literally hit like all the feels. And it's no bullshit when I told you I've watched the thing 4 times. Like that's God's honest truth. I have watched your movie 4 times because I enjoy it that much. And that's just something that I wanted to tell you personally, that for me your film holds a very special place in my heart because I really really enjoyed the shit out of that movie. And so every award you're getting, all the accolades you're getting for it, everything you're getting is, in my opinion, fucking well deserved.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Like that does actually mean a lot. You know, it's difficult putting yourself out there. You know, it really is. Even though, like, you know, I had produced a couple films, I had done a couple short films, and um, doing horror fics and stuff. I had some fantastic opportunities to talk to people in the industry, so I've always sort of hovered around it. You know, but to be able to say like I'm going to take this idea, and you know, and then that's why I hand it to anybody who does it. Honestly, it is a huge endeavor to say I'm going to take something, I'm going to make something that I want, that I want to see, that I want to put out there, and then I'm going to put it out there because the, you know, the world will scrutinize it. Like I'm not, you know, And again, like I never want to come across as being like cynical or jaded. Like I'm very, very happy to have made anything, to have done anything. But it does put you in a position where, you gotta be really thick skinned. Definitely. You've got to be thick
Hmm.
skinned. Um, so when people do enjoy it, that's that counterweight. And often one person can enjoy it. And to me, I count that as having much more value than 20 people who don't.
Right.
Um, because that's what I want. I want somebody to watch it and to be able to get something. Even if it's just enjoyment, even if they just watched it and was like, oh, that was an hour and a half of my life that I don't regret spending on that. It's like, okay, success. I entertained somebody, for an hour and a half because, sort of in this world, in this day and age, an hour and a half to be able to take a step back from whatever reality you're in, even if it's a great reality that still has its pitfalls and its obstacles, but to be able to to be entertained to a degree where you live vicariously through characters for better or for worse, and you have that escape. Like an hour and a half escape is a pretty amazing thing, to either give somebody or give yourself or whatever. So no, seriously, like I can't thank you enough for enjoying it and letting me know about it because that's the intent. I want
Hmm.
to entertain people, and if I can keep entertaining people, then that's gonna be good. Like that's sort of what I always set out to do is like I have a story that I really like, and hopefully I can convey in a way that somebody else can attach themselves to it and go, oh, okay, I understand that, or oh, I get that, or oh, I feel that, or oh, that creeped me out, or whatever. Like if I can elicit a tiny little emotion, that adds to that whole idea of escapism for me. So
Yeah. Well, you nailed it. I'm just going to tell you that you nailed it.
yeah,
It was easy to spend that hour and a half invested in that film because it had everything as far as I'm concerned. It was super creepy at times, and it wasn't like it wasn't like an in your face jump scare type of creepy. It was, your subtlety and a lot of the things you did in that movie was fantastic. So the scene in the field with the, I mean, I just, ugh, I still watch that like I know what's going to happen and I still get goosebumps because it's just, I don't know. I don't know what it is about that scene in particular, but that scene is just, it gives me goosebumps watching it, and I've seen it 4 times. So yeah.
I wanted to do something during the daylight,
Mm-hmm.
and and so we're like, okay, so I wanted to, and I didn't want to. I wanted to because I thought, wow, if I can have a creepy element, and not only like broad daylight, but a sunny day that people are, eating outside and they're having a good time. Like if you can make that creepy, I'm thinking, wow, that would, I could really sort of elevate, the tone of the film doing that. And then there was a part of me that's like, what the hell do you think you're doing? Like, don't try to do that. Just stick to the stuff at night. It's so much easier. But no, I'm glad that, and when we were go back watching, some of the footage, we were like, oh, this works. Like this
Mm-hmm.
does work. It's sort of you're just not expecting to see that out there. And I'm always a person where it's like I think it's that stuff sometimes in the periphery or the stuff in the distance sometimes that scares me.
Yep.
When I watch films where it's just a little bit off center, it's a little bit blurry, you can't really see it, and especially, from a ufological perspective or even a cryptid perspective, that's 99% of the evidence we have is blurry photos and blurry videos. And I sort of wanted to do that. I'm like, well, I can't, you know, give anybody a smoking gun. We can get as close as we can, but we got to put some stuff in the periphery. We got to make sure that it's a little bit obscured, not only from a budgetary perspective, but just because to me that's part of realism is this is the evidence that we see. This is when we go online, this is what we see. So
Mm-hmm.
our brain sort of fills in those gaps naturally and says, oh, this is the way it is because most of this stuff turns out blurry
Yep.
or off center or in the distance, or we just can't quite put our finger on it, or we can't keep it in frame or whatever. I mean, there are a lot of scenes that look too slick for me because the way we shot it. And I was like, I got to go and fuck this up somehow. It's too clear. It'll never work. It's like it gives way too much away. It's funny because and I don't know if I've really talked about this much, but there was a part in the film towards the end where as a complete idiot, I go outside because there's something out there and I want to get a better look at it because my character me is filming this documentary
Mm-hmm.
and we did a few things to try to get this look for that thing that was out there. And the one thing that I wanted to almost make it look like as I wanted to make it look like it was sort of organic and almost sort of robotic at the same time. Like it almost had like this LED sort of quality to it. There was stuff that was glowing and stuff. And I actually spent about 3 weeks on this special effect of I'm running in and I look up and the thing is like directly above me.
Mm-hmm.
And I did this whole CGI thing where we had it sort of was a face that was one of the actors, and then it sort of transformed into something not so human and back and forth like it was trying to grab onto an image and it couldn't quite do it. So it was sort of it was like it was running like a loop of errors trying to fix itself and
Mm-hmm.
have this image. And I spent so much time on it, man. Like I spent because I did the special effects. I did it, the way it comes when you're an indie filmmaker, you're jack of all, you wear
Yep.
so many hats that you're up to 4 o'clock in the morning doing all this stuff. And I was doing the CG for it and I was doing all of these animations and everything for it. And I spent like a solid 3 weeks on this because it was like I really wanted this like money shot of this thing, you know. And I got it done and I just fucking hated it. Like I couldn't stand it. I put it in the movie and I was like, oh, what am I doing? Like I just looked at it and I was like, oh, this is horrible. And everybody else was like, no, it looks good. And I'm like, well, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't work. Like it just doesn't work here. And that was like one thing that was like sort of disappointing was because you get an idea and sometimes you get fixated on that and there's something you might want to show. You're like, I really want to show this. And like I really wanted to show that. Like there was a whole subplot. Like I had so much footage for this thing, Dustin, it was stupid. Like at one point in time, we actually sat down and we're like, we think we've got enough for like this is how much shit we shot. At one point in time, I said, I think we've got enough for 6 1-hour episodes.
Damn.
Like I think we've got enough that we could actually do a series. Like I was and then like I sat there and then I thought to myself, like, I don't know how the hell to do a series. Like I don't know even who to present this to or anything. Like I was just struck with that thought that it was like, okay, you're making a movie that's sort of, putting you in a place you haven't really been in before, making a full length feature. And now on top of it, you want to make a series. I'm like, this is just, you're out of your depth. You don't know what you're doing. So there was a lot of stuff that weird little subplots and stuff that was supposed to run through the course of like, these episodes. Like strangely, I was a much bigger asshole in the other footage. Like
Oh
I've
yeah.
got some footage where I was just an insane jerk. And some of it worked really well and some of it didn't. And by the time like we sat down, it was like, I don't think we can like, we've got enough, but we don't know who to call about this. Like we don't know how to go about marketing a series or anything like that. We just didn't know what we were doing really having that much footage, and that was when we decided like, no, we'll go ahead and go back to the idea of just making it a movie. And then of course it was super long and I had a cut that was like 2 hours
Wow.
that that actually ran at a few festivals. And I was surprised that that one actually ran a few festivals. And then like we had so I will say that we had a conversation with a guy that works for a company that sounds a lot like Retflix. Okay. And at some point in time, there was some interest expressed. And the first piece of advice that I got is, hey, how fast can you trim a half an hour off of this?
Uh,
I was like, oh, this thing that I've been editing for months and months. Um, is Monday okay? Because I hate myself and I'm gonna try to do this in 48 hours. So yeah, there's a cut that's like 2+ hours long, and then over the course of like a weekend, we trimmed it to an hour and 36, which even then they were like, well, technically we'd like an hour and 28 minutes, but
yeah.
didn't matter anyways because that place that rhymes with Netflix didn't pick it up. So
Didn't pick it up, damn it. Well, I would have watched the series. I would have watched the 2 hour cut, the 4 hour cut. I would have watched it all, just so you know.
I think I have the 2 hour cut somewhere. If you want, I'll send you a link to it.
Oh man, that'd be great. I would watch the hell out of that. I really would, because yeah, it's that good of a movie. And I could fanboy over holes all night long. I could, but I won't put you through that. I promise. Um, I know you've got a schedule to keep, but I do want to talk about a couple of more things that you've got coming up real quick. Um, One being Eft, Tales from the End Times. That
Yeah,
is next year. I think 2024 is when that's slated for release.
yeah, that's when I think it's gonna be like out in the wild. I'm hoping that if everything sort of goes according to schedule, that will be in festivals later this year. That's kind of what I'm aiming for. We'll see because it's a much bigger project than I think what I originally intended. These things happen sometimes where you're like, yeah, I want a scene with 100 extras in it, and then all of a sudden you're like, why did I do this to myself? Um, like especially like in the editing room, you're like, why did I do it? But yeah, so we've got this horror anthology. I'm always a big fan of anthologies, a big fan of Creep Show,
Hmm.
big fan of even the serial anthologies like Tales from the Dark Side, Laurel's Monster, stuff like that. So I wanted to do an anthology because I've always enjoyed them. I like this idea of different visions in one movie. So I do the wraparound story and which leads into the end segment, and then we have Dylan Brown, Tahoe Joe and soon to be Ghost fame, who is doing one of the segments. Josh Brucker, who did Mothman, is working on Woodsman. He did a segment, which I've already seen, and it's great. And Ben Harrell, who is a documentary filmmaker, his documentary Afterlife is coming out later this year, and it is a brilliant, brilliant examination of people's views on life after death, and people who even sort of experiment to get there. It's some really interesting stuff that he's done. And his segment, he's already wrapped principal for it, and and then we have John Iceberg, who directed Final Summer, which is doing really, really well in festival circuit right now. It's just sort of an 80s uh, slasher throwback. So we've got four fantastic directors, and then myself as a director doing the rapper and the end segment. And I shot mine. Now it's crazy thinking about it. Like I shot mine over a month ago, and we're still just editing editing because what I wanted to do is I definitely wanted to do something different than what I had done before. Because Holes is sort of a slower burn, and it's a little more of a methodical piece. And I liked that movie does have the ability to get sort of creepy, and it's sort of you know wears on you after a while. And this I decided to do the complete opposite, and like things get underway very, very quickly. And it's I think it definitely falls more under action horror than anything else. But
Hmm.
it's five stories that all take place on the same day in the same universe. It just so happens that it's the day the world ends. So it's different instances of what's happening on this global scale, and I will say that it is a supernatural world ending. So we get some nastiness, and there's a whole lot of blood, and people definitely go out more with a bang than a whimper, and a lot of a lot of the things that we had planned, a lot of things that we shot. So yeah, we're hoping to get that in the festival circuit probably come September when everybody's part is done. Hopefully, mine will be done. The post production is pretty hefty, and then I'm actually shooting another full feature starting in November, and hopefully, I'm going to get that done before the first of the year, and I'll have that edited hopefully for a late 24 release. So I'm hoping that I get the anthology for an early global release in 24, and then the other feature in late 2024.
Okay. Well, yeah, effed it. Just from what you've told me of it, I don't know. Other than what you just said, I don't know anything about it really. And now that I got the general idea of it being an apocalyptic, intertwined anthology, I'm super stoked about it, and I appreciate you sharing that info. So now, if the three other people that are listening to my podcast are going to get stoked about this thing, 'cause, um, it sounds absolutely badass, and I do know Dylan Brown. I do know, not personally, I haven't met them, but we've become pretty close on Facebook and everything. So Dylan and Josh Brucker, I've talked to them. They provided a lot of advice, such as yourself, on my movie. So that, yeah, I do know those two. The other two you mentioned, I don't know that I've heard of, but the way you described them, it sounds like they're going to be great additions to this thing. So it's 5 stories. Are they all like 20-minute segments? Are we looking at about an hour and a half, 2 hour thing, or?
Yep, right around there. Josh's comes in right around 20. Um, I basically told everyone, or mentioned to everyone, like 20 is pretty much our sweet spot. If we have 5 at 20, that puts us at a pretty good run time. And if we're
Mhm.
a few minutes off here or there, that's fine. Mine has come in longer, unfortunately. So we're trying to see what we can do there. But for it's a little bit over, it's a little bit over. But yeah. So you're gonna get 5 pretty like well contained stories that are sort of again all taking place in the same universe and all in the same day. So you might see some connective tissue, between these stories. Um, there might be little Easter eggs and stuff in there, that people might find, and strangely, there might be some holes in the sky Easter eggs in there too,
Oh, okay.
because technically, my film takes place in the same universe. My part of the film takes place in the same universe where that incident happened. So
Ah, okay. Well, shit, man. Okay, so effed somewhere around 24. Okay. Got some great people working on that with you. I'm super stoked about that. Now, you did mention that you've got a board game coming out as well with.
yeah, we've had that in the works for a while. Um, it's an undertaking. All this stuff is an undertaking. I've always been that kind of person where it's like if I can eliminate a learning curve and do something myself just to get something moving, I'll try to do that. So a lot of the artwork is my artwork. Um, I had a friend who was a big gamer that I consulted and was like, "Hey, like I need to make this work. Like, I've got an idea." And what I really wanted was I wanted a game that played like a horror film.
Mhm.
Um, and it plays like a different horror film every time.
Okay.
So the game itself, you can play an occult character, you can play a psychopath, you can play, if you want to play the villain, we've got a slew of villains that luckily you might recognize because parody law is a little fast and loose sometimes. You can get away with because nobody's got a trademark on just a hockey mask. Let's face it. So we can
Right.
get away with a little bit by doing stuff like that. Nobody's got a trademark on just dolls or killer dolls. So you can get sort of close. So let's say if you wanted to play a character that was similar to a cinematic character like Jason Voorhees, or a cinematic character like Chucky, or a cinematic character like Freddy Krueger, there's a character that has some of those attributes that'll sort of satisfy your want to do that. And it's sort of a 3D game, so you get these little stand-up characters. It's interesting to me, anyways, because you blind draw the board. Like, the board isn't laid out in front of you. You actually draw a tile. You flip the tile over, and that tile represents a room. So if you're a killer, for example, the point of the game is you set a body count at the beginning of the game. So let's say 4 or 6, depending on how long you want the game to run, is going to be your body count. So whoever gets 6 makes it back to home base. They win the game. So the thing that I really like about it is that, again, it plays like a horror film. When you go into that room, you have certain glowing items that represent a bed, a closet. So you look to find victims because they can be hiding anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So you roll once you get the amount of spaces you need to reach a bed or a closet or a chest or whatever. And then you roll some dice to see what you find in there. And you might find a weapon. So if it says you grab a weapon, then you blind draw a card for what we call the tool shed. And you might find a machete. You might find night vision binoculars. You might find a Kevlar vest. All the stuff that you can equip your character with. So you can have sort of 5 of these cards, and 5 of any real kind of card. You can have a weapon. You can have what's called a plot twist that might play on any character on the board. It might play on every character, but you have a hand of up to 5 cards that you can use to augment your character. So you have hit points, similar to like you're playing Dungeons and Dragons or something. So it's
Mm-hmm.
got a lot of familiar elements of games, because you can't just get a victim, you have to find a victim.
Right.
The victims fight back in this. And they're everything from a high school principal to an alcoholic parent to a baby in a basket to a high school cheerleader. Like, they're all the horror tropes
Mm-hmm.
about every movie you've seen. Um, and we've got some stuff that's really cool that sort of plays like every card is supposed to play like a horror movie. So if you don't want to play as a psychopath, maybe you want to play as a zombie. So we've got a playable character that's a zombie. And the cool thing about the zombie is that every time you kill a person, your stats increase so that you eventually have a zombie horde. So they're
Okay.
slower than the other characters, but once you have mass victims, they're very difficult to stop. So if anybody plays a zombie, you want to stop them almost automatically, because as soon as they get victims, they're like a force to be reckoned with. So they're sort of like a horde of zombies.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, yeah. So it definitely, I can feel some D&D vibes there. The way you described it, you said it. There's kind of some Dungeons and Dragons elements to it. Now, with it being a different experience every time you play. So is this obviously it's a multiplayer game? Is there a certain limit of players that can play this thing? Is it like D&D where you could play it like one game can last you 12 hours if you wanted it to?
It's meant to last anywhere from about 45 minutes to about 3 hours, is
Okay.
sort of like where we've placed it. That doesn't mean that it couldn't last longer. I mean, we've got some things planned for like expansion decks,
Hmm.
for example. So right now, every room represents like an old house. It looks
Hmm.
like an old, sort of haunted house with blood on the floor. And you can go into sections that are libraries, there's kitchens, there's bathrooms. So you can investigate this entire house as either a killer or a potential victim. Um, the neat thing about it is that there is room for co-op if you really want to. And there are times where you absolutely have to fight an opponent. So a lot of times you might wait for somebody to get their 6 victims, and then you might stalk them across the board in hopes that you can fight them and get their victims, and then win the game.
Oh wow.
Um, So there's a whole lot of like little pieces of strategy in there. And just like their cinematic counterparts, a lot of the character cards are very similar to what their licensed characters are able to do in films. So if you've got, let's say, we've got a character called Murder Doll, which does resemble a red-haired doll of a very popular horror movie franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're that character and you get within about 2 spaces of another character, you can actually roll to possess them for a number of turns. So you can actually then have that other character fight for you. We have characters that can attack from 3 and 4 spaces away. Some have to be right in your space. So we've tried to do as much as possible so that anyone that even hasn't watched a horror film can come in and play it. Now, if you have watched horror films and you like horror films, there is a component that will give you a huge edge, and that is throughout the game are these traps that are scattered. So you can't really avoid them. If you roll and you cross one of them, you have to sort of roll to get out of the trap. And if you roll and your roll is too low, then points are taken off because you have to, get scathed or hurt to get out of the trap.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you do have an alternative to actually answer a horror trivia question
Ah,
as well.
okay.
So we've got a whole deck of trivia cards that come with the game. So there's the ability to have an edge if you are a horror fan. So we did want to make horror fans, have just that tiny little bit of an edge over a normal player where if you know your horror trivia and you want to get through this with as little points taken off as possible, then you're definitely gonna have an advantage.
Wow. Man, you're a busy guy. Like that that sounds amazing, and I kind of wish I lived in Illinois now because I would like to play that game. That sounds really badass, man. That really does. So is
Thank you.
that you did mention you're looking for a manufacturer for that? Like, is that something you can talk about? Do you have any? Like, is there something lined up, or is it still kind of just in the works?
Yeah, we can definitely talk about it. Uh, Things are different after COVID. Like we had the game ready to go prior to COVID, and even publishing models for things before COVID was a little bit different. Um, you had a lot more people in the manufacturing game. A lot of these people went out of business, unfortunately. And a lot of what really took a hit was print on demand services.
Hmm.
So any place that would only have to print 1 or 2 copies of something, you know, their business was based on a whole lot of people printing small numbers. And the rest of the printing business was based on a few people printing a lot.
Yeah.
So it was sort of the reverse. And we had based everything on this model of okay, we can get X amount printed. We don't have to print 5,000 and try to get a price break. We can print 100 and the price wasn't that bad. And unfortunately, post COVID, most of those places are just gone. So it's been a bit of a challenge for us to try to just get the game manufactured because it's went back to the old model, which is you get price breaks at 5,000, $10,000 and well, 5,000, 10,000 units. And sometimes these units run, $18 a piece. And it's like, for an average person who doesn't necessarily have a nest egg of a couple $100,000, it's just not easy to do.
Right.
So we're still examining, cost models, like how exactly do we do this? And crowdfunding is an option, but even the crowdfunding model now has changed. Um, it kind of stinks, Dustin, because we're kind of like in a world of really, really greedy people. So all of these like Kickstarter services or these crowdfunding services really used to be like guys in their basement. Like
Yeah.
and that's sort of why these models were made, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, a lot of these things were made because the little guy
Hmm.
needed to be able to, live his dream, produce things, get money, get funding.
Hmm.
And what we've seen now is that it's become more of an alternate revenue stream for the bigger guys, because what they'll do is they'll just release something a month early and put it on Kickstarter, and then they get $2 million. And because their games are well known from well known game designers, usually they've got a license behind them, so they're dealing with major franchise licensing. So the market's changed, and it's unfortunate, but you don't really have a lot of avenues that are looking out for the little guy. They might have
Right.
started that way, but now again, it's just another revenue stream for people who really don't need the money, but are just looking for a way to increase overall profit. And that kind of stinks.
Yeah. Damn. Well, I wish you the best of luck with it. I really do, because it sounds
Thank you.
phenomenal. It sounds really awesome, and I hope the day comes where millions of people get to play it. I hope to be one of those millions, because it sounds like my cup of tea, right up my alley. I love D&D, I love horror, I love board games, so it sounds like a great time. Um, Ash, I won't take up a whole bunch more of your time, because I know that you're a busy guy. You've got a whole lot of editing to do to make this great anthology effed to be as
Yes.
great as I know as it's going to be. Real quick, anything else that you wanted to plug at out there? Anything else you wanted folks to be aware of that that Ash Hamilton has coming up?
I think for the most part, just keep an eye out for updates about F, because we are releasing some BTS shots, and before too long, we'll probably have a teaser trailer out there. We've got some teaser posters right now, stuff of that nature. But I would just say, people who haven't seen Holes in the Sky, obviously it's still available on most of the major streaming platforms, and I'm pretty available. People,
Hmm.
it's easy to get a hold of me. It's easy to reach out. So, um, yeah, take a look at what I'm doing. Always get on Horror Fix. We have a lot of news about mainstream releases to real indie releases. We got some great interviews on there, and just Google Ash Hamilton. I usually come up associated with horror, so it's pretty easy to find me.
Awesome. Well, and I can at least attest to that. He's not bullshitting. He is very available and around. Um, super, super incredible guy. You are, gentleman and a scholar, sir.
Thank you.
You've been so kind to me, and extremely helpful. Always willing to spend 30 seconds just to give me some advice, and I really appreciate that. That does mean a lot to me. I hope the day comes that I can repay that to you somehow, by whether it be giving you some sort of a credit in one of my films as a as something, associate producer credit, or just something. I want to be able to repay the kindness you've shown me somehow, someday. But for all the folks that don't know, you heard it. He is available. Facebook. Do you have any other socials that people can reach out to you on?
Yeah, I'm usually under Horrorfix. So Horrorfix, we're on Twitter.
Okay.
Um, I'm not on Instagram that much, even though I have an account. Like sadly, I haven't really learned to use Instagram that much. Like, I still don't really get it, even though I know that in the media sphere it has value. Like, I stumble through it. So mainly it's, yeah, Facebook and Twitter is probably two of the biggest ways to get a hold of me.
Okay. Okay. And I understand. I have an Instagram. I think I've been on it for like 7 minutes ever. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like I still just see a lot of pictures of food and stuff on there. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel really old on Instagram. Like, I feel like I'm really out of the loop and that I don't get it.
Well, all right, man. Well, I appreciate it so much. And yes, folks, get to watching Holes in the Sky. However, you got to watch it. If you got to rent it, it's worth it. It is on, like Ash said, on all the major streaming platforms, Tubi, all of those. So watch Holes in the Sky. It is well worth it. Get on horrorfix.com. Check out that stuff. Night Terrors Radio, that's your podcast. Um,
Yeah.
folks can listen to you there. Keep an eye out for F's Tales from the End Times, and again, you can find this guy on Facebook and Twitter mostly. Ash, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for allowing me to have you as a guest on my podcast. Like I've been a giddy little schoolgirl all day. Like I really have. So this is an honor for me. I really appreciate your time, sir. I do.
I had a great time, man. I love talking horror movies, and I love talking about the '80s. So anytime, man, anytime you want to chat, just let me know.
Perfect. I love that. So, all right, buddy. Well, you take care, and I will talk to you soon. Hopefully, we can set this up again in the future. And I'd love to have you back on anytime.
Yep, I'd love to. Just let me know. We'll make it happen.
All right, man. Well, you take care.
Take care.
All right. Bye bye.